You've smelled it before, not with your nose but with something older, something primal, a silence that came too quickly, a laugh that bent in the middle, a look that lasted a fraction shorter than it should have. Fear doesn't march toward you with a flag in its hand. It seeps in like a draft under the door, almost invisible, until you notice the chill, and most men never notice it. They walk past it. They mistake it for shyness, for politeness, for fatigue, but you've been in those rooms. You've seen their hands fidget when you speak. You've watched their words trip over themselves, as if they're trying to step around you without drawing attention. Fear is not loud, it's surgical. It hides in the microscopic, the way their pupils flare when your gaze locks on theirs, the way their breath catches before they speak your name. It's the body's confession, long before the mind can disguise it. You've felt it in women who suddenly soften their tone with you. You've felt it in men who begin defending themselves before you've accused them of anything. They think they're being subtle. They don't know that fear is the loudest silence in the world. Most men only realize they were feared after the moment has passed, after the meeting ends, after the date is over, after the opportunity to use it has already slipped away. But you will learn to catch it in the moment, to see the tremor in the surface while the water is still calm, to know exactly when you are the gravity pulling their thoughts out of alignment, because fear is not just an emotion, it's a signal, and those who detect it first decide what happens next. And here is the truth: no one tells you fear is the first proof of power, not power you chase, not power you beg for, power that others hand to you without even knowing they've surrendered. Once you smell it, you can't unsmell it. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. And once you act on it, you never go back. Fear speaks long before the mouth opens. It has a dialect all its own, one the average man is deaf to. You hear it in the way their tone drops an octave when addressing you, as if their voice instinctively lowers in reverence. You see it in the way they step aside without being asked, creating space you never demanded, but they offer anyway. You feel it in the air when they break their own rules for you, without making you earn it. These are not coincidences. They are small surrenders, and the man who understands power knows the smallest surrender always predicts the largest one. They'll call you sir when they don't call anyone else sir. They'll over-explain harmless actions as if they're pleading their case before a judge. They'll offer favors you never requested, not out of generosity, but out of insurance. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. The truly powerful never need to be told they are feared. They feel it the way a predator feels the wind shift when prey breaks formation. You are not waiting for words. You are watching for tells. The world doesn't teach you this. It teaches you to seek compliments, to chase applause, to crave permission. It tells you to measure your worth by how much people like you. And so, men grow blind to the unspoken, to the fear that hides in courtesy, in laughter, in lowered eyes. But the dominant man, he measures worth differently. He notices who avoids contradicting him, who adjusts their posture in his presence, who changes the rhythm of their breathing when he enters the room. He knows that submission is rarely announced, it's leaked, in hesitations, in half-finished sentences. In the way someone reaches for a glass of water that's already full, most will miss it, not because it's invisible, but because it demands a stillness they can't summon. To catch these signals, you cannot be the man filling the air with noise. You must be the man who lets silence do the interrogation. Understand this: fear does not present itself in dramatic scenes. It hides in mundane moments. A pause too long, a smile too quick, a concession too easy. Read it, register it, and do not rush to comfort them. That discomfort is proof of your leverage. The wind is always whispering to the predator, but only the predator who listens survives. Every man stands at the same crossroads, though most never see it. One path is paved in ignorance smooth, quiet, deceptively safe. The other is cut through stone, jagged, and lined with the bones of those who hesitated. You are standing there now. If you remain blind to the scent of fear, you will still be feared from time to time. Not because of mastery, but by accident, a shadow cast by something in you they can't name. But like water running through open fingers, that fear will slip away. You won't know how to hold it. You won't know how to use it. And while you're busy thinking you're being nice, someone else sharper, hungrier will use your moments of dominance to make their moves. That is the first path, the prey's path. The deer hears the twig snap and convinces itself it's just the wind. The deer sees the eyes in the dark and tells itself they're just reflections. The deer dies quietly, still wondering if the danger was real. The other path is different. It demands you train your senses until they're almost unnatural. Until you can taste the shift in the air when someone loses their nerve. Until you can smell uncertainty like smoke before a fire. This is the predator's path. The wolf doesn't need to see the wound to know it's there. It smells the blood miles away. It follows not with reckless hunger but with patience. Every step is measured, every pause deliberate. It knows when to close the distance and when to let the prey run itself to exhaustion. This choice is not about cruelty, it's about position. In every interaction, every negotiation, every argument, every seduction, someone holds the upper hand. Someone is bending, even if they don't admit it. If you can't feel it, you're probably the one bending. You have been taught to look away from fear, to soothe it, to make others comfortable. But the man who chooses the predator's path does the opposite. He studies it. He notices who looks away first, who laughs too quickly, who speaks without being asked, as if to fill a silence they can't endure. And then he remembers not every signal is acted on, not every weakness is exploited, but every single one is logged, stored, kept in the quiet vault of the mind until the moment comes to strike. So now you stand here, wolf or deer. Will you smell the blood before anyone else? Or will you pretend the wind carries nothing but air, until it's too late to run? The eyes are the oldest weapon in human history. Before there were swords, before there were crowns, there was the gaze, the silent collision between two minds, deciding without words who stands higher. When you look at someone, you are not simply seeing them. You are entering the oldest arena the human brain knows. The primal circuitry doesn't care about etiquette, political correctness, or polite smiles. It remembers a world where a locked gaze meant one thing: dominance or danger. Fear cannot hide here for long. It leaks through the eyes like light through a cracked wall. Some will scatter their gaze too quickly, a reflex to protect themselves from being read. Others will blink too fast, the nervous system screaming to break the connection before it exposes too much. And then there are the overcompensators, those who hold your stare just a second too long, a fraction too still, hoping to convince you they aren't afraid. But their pupils betray them, their micro movements betray them. You've seen this before, you just didn't know what it meant. That job interview where the manager looked away mid-sentence. That date where her laughter dropped, and her eyes darted to the side before answering. That so-called alpha in your social circle who suddenly found something else to look at when you stood your ground. The gaze is not random, it's a metric. The moment someone avoids your eyes when stakes are high, they're telling you they've conceded ground. It's not always conscious. Most of the time, they don't even realize it's happened. But on an instinctive level, the negotiation is already over. Predators in the wild use the same test. Two wolves lock eyes. One holds, one breaks. No blood needs to be spilled to decide. Who yields the brain has already logged the answer. The tragedy is that most men have been trained to misread this. They think don't stare, it's rude. They think look away to be polite. But in the realm of power, looking away first is a form of bowing. It signals you get to decide. You don't need to win every gaze battle. A true strategist knows when to hold and when to let the other believe they've won. But you must always notice, because once you notice, you can choose. You can let the moment pass, storing that data for later use. Or you can tighten the silence, let your stillness stretch just a heartbeat longer, and make them feel the weight of being seen. Fear doesn't start with trembling hands or stammered words. It starts in the fraction of a second where someone's eyes tell you, without meaning to, I would rather not be here under your gaze, and once you can read that, you're already ahead. Fear has a sound. It doesn't always scream. It doesn't always tremble sometimes. It hides inside the music of someone's words. When you speak, you control the air between you. When they fear you, they lose control of it. Listen closely. You'll hear it in the rushed sentences, as if they need to finish before you can interrupt. You'll hear it in the over-explanations, the unnecessary details, the desperate attempt to make you agree. And sometimes, you'll hear it in the sudden flood of politeness, like sugar poured over a bitter truth. This isn't random, it's survival instinct. The human voice was built to communicate safety or danger long before it was built to tell stories. Under pressure, the vocal cords betray the mind. They tighten, they strain, they spill too much. Words become padding, filling the silence that you intentionally or not created. Silence is your ally. Because a man who can sit comfortably in silence is a man who owns the tempo. And when you own the tempo, the other person has two options: endure it or try to break it. The insecure will try to break it. They will speak just to stop the weight of your gaze. They will explain things you didn't ask for. They will bend their sentences into agreement, slipping in phrases like "you're right" or "exactly" far too often. Every extra word they give you is a confession. I am trying to keep you calm. You've seen this happen. That coworker who starts talking faster when you question them. That woman whose tone suddenly softens when she senses you're displeased. That friend who changes their opinion mid-sentence when they feel you're not aligned. A true predator doesn't pounce immediately when this happens. He listens. He lets them keep talking, because the longer they speak, the more they reveal not just about the truth, but about themselves. Power is rarely loud. It is the quiet that makes others speak louder. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. People reveal more when you give them space to fill. A king doesn't rush to answer. A general doesn't shout his commands, he delivers them slowly, forcing every ear to lean in. The moment you start talking like you need to be understood, you've already lowered yourself. So you slow your voice. You keep your words measured, deliberate, unshaken. You let them feel the contrast between your stillness and their rush. And in that contrast, the hierarchy writes itself, because the man who owns his voice, owns the room, and the one whose voice bends, he has already surrendered long before he realizes the battle began. Space is a language, one most men never learn to read. When someone fears you, they don't just change their words, they change their orbit. They take a half step back without realizing it. They shift their body so they're no longer directly in front of you. They move in an arc, circling rather than crossing your path. They think it's subtle, but it's as obvious as a white flag in a battlefield. This is not respect. Respect stands its ground. This is territorial surrender. Animals understand this better than men. A wolf will lower its head and widen the gap between itself and the alpha. A lioness will give way to the dominant male without a sound. The human mind is wired the same. The primal brain chooses distance as a shield. hoping space will soften the threat. But you see it for what it is. They're trying to create safety without asking for it. They're telling you without speaking, I will move, so you don't have to, and here's the truth. A man who controls space controls perception. Kings in court never approached their subjects. They sat still, high upon the throne, while others made the slow, deliberate walk forward. The distance wasn't just physical, it was symbolic. I will not cross to you. You will cross to me. That's the quiet power of stillness. The one who moves first pays a tax. The one who stays rooted collects it. Watch carefully. That coworker who suddenly leans back when you lean forward. That stranger who steps to the side in a crowded room, even when they have the right of way. That rival who approaches but stops just outside your reach, waiting for you to close the gap. Each one is telling you the same thing. You are the center of gravity here, and I am adjusting my orbit. It's not arrogance to notice this. It's survival to understand it. Because if you don't, you'll mistake submission for coincidence, and you'll let your power leak away unnoticed. There's a reason generals choose the high ground. A reason powerful men take the seat facing the room. A reason predators position themselves where others must walk into their space instead of the other way around. Space shapes psychology. Distance dictates dominance. So you hold your ground. You do not rush forward to close the gap. You let them walk the extra steps. You let them lean in. You let them come into your territory, because the moment you move to them, you level the field, and the moment they move to you, they've already lost ground before a single word is spoken. Not all fear hides in silence. Some fear smiles at you, too wide, too often. It dresses itself in friendliness, hoping you won't smell the tension underneath. You've seen it before, the exaggerated laugh at something that wasn't even funny. The sudden flood of compliments from someone who's never spoken to you that way before. The quick, overexcited tone that bends itself into safe shapes, as if trying to convince you I'm no threat. Please believe it, but you are not fooled. You understand that false warmth is often colder than hostility. Because a man who truly respects you doesn't need to sell it. His tone stays steady. His words stay measured. Only the ones who fear your perception feel the need to wrap it in ribbons. It's the same tactic prey animals use in the wild. When cornered, some will flash bright colors, puff themselves up, or play dead anything to distract the predator's focus. Humans do the same, only their camouflage is social. They hide behind charm that's turned up just a little too high. You can hear it in their laughter. It's not a laugh that releases tension. It's a laugh that tries to bury it. A fraction too loud, a fraction too long, and in that extra beat, you hear the truth. I'm uncomfortable, and I don't know what you'll do next. Pay attention to their praise. The more specific and genuine it is, the more likely it comes from respect. The more generic and exaggerated it sounds, you're amazing, you're incredible, wow, that's unbelievable, the more likely it's a shield. A linguistic offering to the person they hope won't challenge them. This is why the sharp man listens less to the words, and more to the why behind them. Why did their voice suddenly rise in pitch? Why did they reach for humor when the moment was serious? Why did they just agree with something they clearly don't believe? Overcompensation is a confession in disguise. It says, I feel the power gap between us, and I'm rushing to fill it with noise before you notice. A man who commands himself never scrambles to please. His humor flows naturally, not like a desperate performance. His praise is rare and therefore priceless. His warmth appears when it's chosen, not when it's needed to survive. So when you see the mask, don't rip it off. Let them wear it. Let them believe it's working, because the moment you acknowledge the performance, the game changes, and you hold the script they don't even know they're reading from. They told you to be fearless, to bury your fear, to kill it. That's a lie. Fearlessness is not strength, it's blindness. A man without fear walks into traps because he can't feel them tightening. He gambles with his life because he thinks the table is fair. He thinks courage is ignoring the storm, when real power is hearing the thunder before it hits. Fear is not your enemy, it's your radar. It warns you where the knife will come from, who will betray you, when to move, and when to wait. You don't conquer fear by erasing it. You conquer it by owning it so completely that it bends into something else: precision, patience, presence. The man you should fear is not the one who feels nothing. It's the one who can make you feel everything at once: tension in your chest, heat in your face, the sudden dryness in your mouth. He doesn't need to lift a finger. His presence pulls the animal out of your soul, forces your instincts to scream danger without explanation. That is the currency. Fear is a transaction. You take it from someone without giving yours in return. The more they feel it, the more control you hold. You ask fewer questions and they talk more. You move slower and they rush. You say nothing and they confess. Because fear creates imbalance, and the one who triggers it decides the terms of the exchange. Think about the so-called fearless man. He acts first, moves too quickly, breaks his own rhythm to show he's not afraid. In his rush to prove himself, he becomes predictable, and the predictable man is already defeated. Now think about the one who cultivates fear in others. He doesn't sprint toward the enemy, he makes the enemy step back. He doesn't shout to be heard, he makes silence heavier than words. He doesn't chase, he waits. Knowing the longer you stand in his shadow, the more you start negotiating against yourself. Power is not the absence of fear. It's the ability to make fear one-sided, to keep yours hidden and make theirs visible, to use their tremor as a compass, to sense the subtle shifts, the glance away, the stutter, the change in breath, and cash it in for control. A fearless man is reckless. A man who controls fear his and theirs is untouchable. Because in a world obsessed with killing fear, he is the one who keeps it alive, not as a weakness, but as a weapon. You don't walk into a room anymore. You arrive, quietly, slowly, and the air changes before you speak. Eyes don't just look at you, they adjust to you. Voices shift in tone without knowing why. Every subtle gesture, every uneven breath, every glance that lingers half a second too long. You read it like scripture, not because you're guessing, but because you've trained your instincts to hear what most men ignore. You've become the radar. You feel tension before it forms. You sense hostility in the flicker of an eyelid. You smell attraction in the way someone hesitates to leave. You read respect in the pause before they answer, and weakness in the rush to fill silence. You no longer speak to prove yourself. Your words are chosen the way a sniper chooses bull. It's not to make noise, but to end the conversation before it begins. One sentence from you carries more weight than 100 from them, because you've learned that control isn't in the speaking, it's in the moments they're too afraid to. Arguments, you don't have them. Conflicts, they dissolve before they reach you, not because you're unchallenged, but because the terms of engagement change when they realize you've already mapped their next move. They feel it that you've seen the fight before it starts, that whatever they say, you've already measured, weighed, and prepared the counter, before the first word escapes their lips, and so they yield. Not with a declaration, not with an apology, but with the tiny, involuntary behaviors. They don't even notice the slight bow of the head, the softened tone, the body angling toward you instead of away. Approval becomes your unspoken currency. They seek it without asking. They edit themselves in your presence. They want to be seen by you, but only in the right light, the light that doesn't trigger your quiet, surgical disapproval. You move less now because the more still you are, the more the world moves around you. Every step you take is deliberate, every glance a choice. You're not part of the noise anymore, you're the signal they didn't realize they were waiting for. This is the ascent, not the loud climb of the desperate, but the silent rise of the inevitable, the moment when the game stops being about winning and becomes about owning the board before anyone notices it's yours. You don't chase dominance now, you are dominance, the kind that doesn't announce itself, the kind that bends people without them knowing they've been moved. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. Once you hear the unspoken, you can't go back to silence. The world reveals itself in fractures. You start noticing the tremor in the voice that claims confidence, the nervous swallow before the joke, the way someone's eyes dart not toward you, but away, searching for escape. At first, it feels like a gift. You walk into a room and it plays out like a slow-motion confession. Every posture, every shift in weight, every forced smile all telling you who's in control, who's bluffing, and who's already broken. But then you understand the cost, because when you can read the cracks in others, you also start to see the ones in yourself. You notice the moments you overcompensate, the times you speak not from strength, but from the quiet urge to be liked. The times you laugh when you should have stayed silent. It's unsettling, this mirror the world holds up, because you realize that most of what people call connection is nothing more than a dance of insecurities. That behind almost every compliment lies a transaction. That even warmth can be a disguise for fear. And when you know this, there's no innocence left. You stop taking people at face value. You stop being seduced by charm. You stop mistaking noise for power. This sight changes everything. It makes you patient, because you no longer need to force outcomes, you can see them forming. It makes you dangerous, because while others react to the surface, you move according to the undercurrent. But it also makes you alone, because most people don't want to be seen this clearly. They'll feel it when you're near that you don't buy the act, and some will admire it, while others will fear it. Here's the truth. Once you cross this threshold, the game stops being about what people show you and starts being about what they can't hide, and when you live in that reality, there's no going back. There's a reason most men never look too closely. It's not because they can't see, it's because they're afraid of what they'll find. Once you learn to detect fear, you stop living in the same world as everyone else. You start catching it everywhere, in the delayed reply from a friend, in the shallow breath of someone telling you they're fine, in the way a handshake lingers just a fraction too long, desperate for reassurance. And here's the truth you won't read in any self-help book. Once you see weakness, you can't unsee it. That means the people you once called equals won't feel the same anymore. You'll see the cracks in your friends, the hidden envy, the quiet dependence, the subtle submission. You'll see your partner differently every time they compromise, every time they look to you for approval before making a move. You'll even see it in your family, in the way they tread carefully around certain truths, in the way they avoid certain topics like landmines. And it will change you, because the old dynamics you lived in will shatter, the illusion of equality will be gone, and when people sense that you can read them, they will respond in only two ways. They will either submit to you, or they will avoid you entirely. Both have a cost. Submission sounds tempting until you realize it comes with dependence. Avoidance feels clean until you realize it comes with isolation. You will lose some relationships. Not because you wanted to, but because truth corrodes the fabric of comfort. This is the price of stepping into quiet dominance. You stop playing the surface games. You stop pretending you don't notice the fear in someone's eyes when they disagree with you. You stop indulging in fake laughter just to keep the peace, and people will feel that. They will feel your refusal to participate in weakness, and it will unsettle them. You'll walk into a room, and conversations will shift without you saying a word. Smiles will tighten, postures will adjust, some will lean in drawn to the gravity of your presence. Others will retreat not because they hate you, but because they hate how much of themselves you make visible. So understand this before you sharpen your vision further. Power always comes with a price, and the higher you climb, the fewer people can breathe at your altitude. This is the truth that no one tells you. It's not the darkness in others that will test you. It's what happens when you finally see it and can never look away. There comes a point where you stop hunting. You stop scanning faces for the tremor in the jaw. You stop listening for the hesitation in the voice, because now you are the tremor, you are the hesitation, you are the unspoken weight that tilts the entire room. Fear no longer hides in others for you to find. It orbits you. It bends itself around your presence, like gravity around a black hole, and without a word, you pull people into alignment or push them into retreat. It's not arrogance, it's physics. They don't understand why they straighten their posture when you pass. They don't notice the way their tone shifts, their words slow, their eyes search your face for a flicker of approval. It's not respect. Not really. It's the animal inside them recognizing something it cannot challenge without bleeding. And here's the part most men never reach: you don't need to perform dominance anymore. You've become the environment it breathes in. You are the weather system in every interaction. Calm when you choose, storm when you decide. Women feel it before you speak. Men sense it before you move. The weak cling to it for shelter. The proud test it, and then they remember their place. You have transcended the game of reading fear because the game now reads you. Every pause you take is interpreted as strategy. Every glance is felt like a blade, and every silence you hold becomes the loudest thing in the room. This is the final transformation, not the man who detects weakness early, but the man whose existence forces others to expose theirs. And once you reach this point, you understand the truth the rest of the world can't swallow. Power is not about chasing influence. It's about becoming the axis around which others rotate. So you don't look for the signs anymore. Because now, you are the sign. The man who detects fear early doesn't just win the game, he writes the rules the fearful must follow.